Welcome in to Daily Faceoff Live, your go-to source for everything hockey. Live every weekday at noon Eastern.
A playoff edition of Daily Faceoff Live, a Game 7 edition of Daily Faceoff Live, and it's brought to you by Bet365, our sports betting partner for the 2024 playoffs. We'll be here with Bet365 to give you all the news, analysis, lines, and betting options until just one team is left standing at the end of June. Frank Seravalli with us from Vancouver. Frank, vibe check in Van City for Game 7. How's it going?
Oh, man. Cannot wait. This is what you live for as a hockey reporter. This is what you live for as a player. Nothing better than this. All Canadian Game 7, so much on the line. Honestly, can't tell which team is facing more pressure heading into Game 7. There's a lot at stake at Rogers Arena tonight.
Two teams trying to punch their ticket to the Western Conference Final. We're going to be doing an Eastern Conference Final preview with Jon Goyens in our big segment today with the Coaches Room. We're going to chat a little bit about Craig Berube going to the Leafs as well. We'll talk about the Dallas Stars, but let's start with the big story of the day, Frank. It is Game 7 in Vancouver. The Oilers taking on the Canucks, and for the Oilers, it was a decisive Game 6 victory that brought them to this point. Really, I think the first time in this series we've seen Edmonton be, their A level, B plus level for more than a 10-15 minute stretch. The Oilers looked very good. Let's maybe start with the offense. Connor McDavid woke up in this one. They got 5-5v5 goals as well. There were a handful of reasons to feel optimistic walking out of Game 7 if you're an Oilers fan.
Yeah, that's the first game all series long that the Oilers had a convincing start to finish win. And it felt more like what the Oilers did instead of what the Canucks didn't do. They found a way to take it to them after kind of feeling each other out in an elimination game through the first 20 minutes. And that is the most positive sign, that on a night when the Oilers didn't or couldn't rely on their power play despite plenty of opportunities, they find a way at 5-on-5 to get it done. And so that was by far their most special performance of the series. They hadn't been able to really string a ton together, and they controlled play for a vast chunk of that game, resulting in the first non-one goal game that we've had so far in this series. So that's the reason to be optimistic if you're an Oiler fan. If you're a Canucks fan, you're sitting here going, well, we didn't play great, and that happens from time to time in the playoffs, but we did keep their power play off the board for a 10th consecutive power play. We feel pretty good about the way that we've made adjustments from game to game in this series. Rick Tocchet has had the golden touch, whether it's lineup changes, whether it's scheme, whether it's, pure aggression that they've injected to varying points of their structure. And it's really paid off in a big, big way. So if you're a Canucks fan, there's plenty of reasons to feel optimistic as well. Maybe even feeling like you're the team that is playing with house money. I mean, let's go big picture perspective here. I was here in Vancouver for training camp in September, and Jim Rutherford said, quote, "We can be a playoff team if everything goes right." Tonight, Game 7, they have a chance to end the Edmonton Oilers season, who came in as a true bona fide Stanley Cup contender. And they've picked and pulled at the thread that's been the Edmonton Oilers all season long, starting with an 8-1 thrashing. Tyler, I wrote about this morning on dailyfaceoff.com. 196 days ago, November 6th, in Vancouver, the Canucks beat the Oilers 6-2. Jay Woodcroft was thrown out of the game with 6 minutes left. The next day, Jack Campbell was put on waivers, never to be seen in an Oilers uniform again this season. Woodcroft didn't survive the week. The Oilers began their turnaround after that, but it's been the Canucks they beat the Oilers 3 times in the first 27 days of the season and can now finish the season with a win tonight, 8-3. Indisputable, unquestionable 8-3. There's been a lot to unpack as to how we got to this point, but the Oilers can also vanquish those Vancouver Demons with one game once and for all.
I was on with our friends at Morning Cup of Hockey this morning, Johnny and Colby, and Johnny maybe trying to get under my skin a little bit, but he said tonight is a lose-lose for the Edmonton Oilers. Either you go and you win, or sorry, you lose this game and it's what a wasted season, what a wasted opportunity. And he said, but if you win, it doesn't count because it's no Demko and no Brock Boeser for the Vancouver Canucks. I think it's an insane narrative from Johnny, but this is a big opportunity for the Oilers because of how shorthanded the Canucks are. Let's maybe go over to the Brock Boeser news. Frank, you had an update on that this morning. Like, the timing of it is brutal. The injury or the blood clotting itself is just a terrible thing to hear about a player, and it's a shame and a brutal break for the Canucks, and we obviously send our best to Boeser.
Horrible timing. There's no good timing for a blood clot, but when you are not only your team's leading scorer in the playoffs with 7 goals, but you've been a certified Edmonton Oiler killer this season with 9 goals in the 10 games that you've played, man, that hurts. And so the blood clot, sources say, developed in his leg. Doctors and team medical staff found it after game 6. Honestly, I wonder if that had anything to do at all with Boeser's performance in game 6, because he really struggled. And he began a blood thinning medication sometime in the last 48 hours, and he's expected to be out of game action for at least 3 months, sources say. So that effectively ends his season. Really tough spot for the Canucks. And you're right. From an Oilers perspective, you're playing a team's third goalie over a 7-game series. You have to win, period, end of story. And not only that, but I think from a grand, again, 30,000 foot view, and we'll have plenty of time to unpack whichever way this goes, the Oilers are sitting in a spot where, compared to the Rangers, compared to the Dallas Stars, compared to some of the other best teams in the league, even the Florida Panthers, this was by far the most preferable path of any team to the conference final. And if you're not able to get there in a season in which, let's rewind again back to September, Leon Draisaitl said, quote, cup or bust. This is it. You put it all on the line here to give yourself a puncher's chance against the Dallas Stars, who will come into that series in the Western Conference Final as the favorite against either one of these teams. There's, again, so much on the line.
Yeah, it's game 7, and the wild and the beautiful thing about game 7s is a goalpost, a missed net, one big save, one big moment. Like, it can define your season. And if you're the Oilers, you sit there and go, man, it could define the Connor McDavid era in Edmonton if you let this opportunity slip past you tonight. So there is a lot on the line. I don't think I'm, speaking in hyperbole or anything when I say that. This is a defining moment in Connor McDavid's career and this era for the Edmonton Oilers. If you're asking, Frank, I think they're facing the most pressure tonight. I know you said there's an argument for both, and obviously a game 7 on home ice with this kind of a season. But if the Canucks lose, I think Canucks fans can sit there and say, massive building block for us in terms of becoming a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. And hey, missing our best goalie, missing our best player, Quinn Hughes, who knows if he's actually healthy. Like, I think there's enough there if you're Canucks fans to maybe feel okay with a loss.
Why? I mean, you had leads of 1-0, 2-1, and 3-2 in this series. The fact that you couldn't step on the Oilers' throats, even with Artur Shilov's in net, even with some of those other things you're talking about, like, you finished 5 points ahead of the Oilers in the standings. Mm-hmm. You could say whatever you want about who's the better team, who's the underdog, this or that. 5 points ahead, home ice advantage, 3 different times having a lead in the series, and you can't win. And you come into this having I think they had their opportunity to take a kill shot in game 6 and missed. Like, I look at that and say, I think the pressure is equally divided going into this game 7.
Going to be a fun one tonight out in Vancouver. Frank will have coverage on dailyfaceoff.com. They are playing for the right to meet with the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Final, and they punched their ticket to the third round of the playoffs with a double OT victory in Denver over the Colorado Avalanche. They wrap up the series in 6 games. They are going to get a nice couple of days off as well, which is important for that Stars team, Frank. But I mean, hey, they've been your cup pick the entire time, and I feel like all they've done through 2 rounds of the playoffs is cement why they were your cup pick, Frank. They are deep up front. They have a hell of a blue line and one of the best goalies in the NHL. They proved in this series against Colorado they are damn near flawless.
They've been excellent, and they've done it against some really tough teams in some tough spots. Down 0-2 on home ice to the Vegas Golden Knights, win the series in 7. You get a lead against the Colorado Avalanche, they make you think in the series. You blow a couple leads to the Colorado Avalanche, sizable ones twice. You don't blink. You've got the best depth in the NHL. You've got a blue line, even if it's only 5 guys, that's incredibly mobile and efficient. You've got a great goaltender in Jake Ottinger. And oh, by the way, you get to watch the Vancouver Canucks and Edmonton Oilers duke it out in Game 7 tonight while you get an extra 2 days of rest. Big question is Roope Hintz and his status moving forward, but the extra days of rest, they're not going to hurt anyone. So I think the Stars, especially having won the West and having home ice advantage through this round, is so incredibly important for them to get off on the right foot. They're sitting back at home today knowing they don't have to play until Thursday. It's a great spot to be in.
Yeah. Well, okay, let me just maybe flip this a little bit. One of Edmonton or Vancouver will have to turn their attention relatively quickly to this Dallas team and be out there by Wednesday for a game on Thursday. Is there any hole you can poke in Dallas?
Maybe the fact that they've had some moments where they almost beat themselves, giving up those leads, giving up not just the lead in the series, the lead in games. Like, they've played with fire a little bit and they haven't gotten burnt to this point. But my question is, can the Oilers or Canucks raise the temperature high enough to singe Dallas? That's going to be the tougher thing to accomplish. Vegas and Colorado can do that. The Oilers might, or Canucks might, have some momentum heading into a Game 1 based on the high of a Game 7. But it's going to be an incredibly difficult challenge for whoever comes out of the Pacific side, because I think Dallas has shown that they're the clear best team in the West.
They are. And that forward group, I think we got the DFO lines here. It's just, and again, Johnny and Colby asked me about this today. Like, oh, how would the Oilers hypothetically stack up? And I said, the Oilers' biggest strength is having Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on separate lines. What makes Dallas so good is that they almost negate that, because that top line is legit. If they get Roope Hintz back, they have this second line that can hum, and it pushes Matt Duchene down. And all of a sudden it's a third line that can outwork you and outscore you. And part of that is the season Matt Duchene's been having as well. What are you going to say?
They have 2 first lines, not one first line. That's the thing. And so the Oilers, on a good day, they can brag about that too. But to me, their secondary scoring hasn't been nearly good enough. And I'll echo the same thing for the Canucks. It's been mostly the same guy scoring all playoffs. They need more from other sources.
Matt Duchene had an incredible regular season, 25 goals, 40 assists after being bought out by the Predators. He only has 2 goals so far in this playoff run, but the second one, Frank, was absolutely massive. I loved seeing the heartbreaker celly from Matt Duchene as well after he clinched it up. Just finally on this series, to put a bow on it, there was also, as there has been, I feel like in every series, a controversial goalie interference call in OT of that game. I was sitting there watching it. I really did not know which way the NHL was going to go on that goal, but the selfish part of me was, I don't want the controversy here. I wanted the OT winner to be scored without any of that. So I was hoping it was no goal. I did get that wish. Did they make the right call in your eyes?
I don't think they did.
Oh.
I hate to see a series end that way, but I would have made that a goal. It should have been a goal. But I think there's probably some part of them that's feeling the exact same way that you and I are, is like, hey, we don't want to decide a series. And then the fact that Duchene got a couple chances after that before finally putting in the winner is kind of incredible. But I love what he said after the game about taking a look and peek at the monitor in the little broadcast booth between the benches, where he said, we're watching the ice time go up and up for McKinnon and Rantanen, knowing that the longer this goes on in 2 OT, we're going to have a better chance to win. And he was certainly right about that.
Off the ice last week, Frank, let's wrap up with this before we get to Jon Goyens. The Toronto Maple Leafs announced the hiring of Craig Berube, a 4-year deal for him to be the new bench boss of the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the 3rd city where he'll be a head coach. Obviously won the Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues back in 2018. Frank, what do you make of this hire? And I know you yourself and Jason Greger had a bigger conversation about this on a new episode of the DFO Rundown, which dropped over the weekend, or yesterday, I should say. But do you think Berube, with his no-nonsense kind of attitude, can he have a Rick Tocchet-like impact on this Leafs team?
I think he can. I think it's a great comparison, and I think it's really apt given that not only are these two guys really close friends and former teammates, but I think they're cut from the same cloth in terms of their intensity, in terms of their attention to detail, and I think perhaps most importantly, their emotional intelligence. I've spent a long time around Craig Berube and in his orbit in my career. And he's someone that he's got this intimidating look. He can just look at you and it feels like he's saying to you, I'm going to punch you in the face, but he's not actually saying that. And when he opens his mouth, he doesn't say that. And so you kind of get this feeling of like, I want to, if you're a player, I want to run through a wall for this guy because there is this, he's got a great way of working with people and talking to people. He's got a very relaxed sort of demeanor in that sense. He looks intimidating, but when you hear him open his mouth, that's not what he says. And I think that's important for a team. I think his message is always simple. Go back and watch Game 7 before the Stanley Cup final. I mean, this is to decide the Stanley Cup final. His pregame speech is 15 seconds long. You don't need to say anything crazy. You don't need a long, drawn-out win one for the Gipper. That's not what this is about, and it's not always about structure and X's and O's, even though he's really good and underrated at that. This is someone who's won, and bleep around time's over for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So if you want to get someone that wins, you bring in Craig Berube, and if you want to continue to recycle other coaches, go ahead and get someone else because Craig Berube worked for one organization for 18 years. He then went to the St. Louis Blues and won a Stanley Cup. That's the only other place he's worked. So pretty solid track record, and I would say not one that you would consider a recycle.
The busy summer is just beginning in Toronto, Frank. Let's turn our attention back to the Stanley Cup playoffs and get into our Monday edition of the Coaches Room with Jon Goyens. The Coaches Room is powered by Booster Juice. Visit a location today to refuel, refresh, and re-energize. You can also download the new Booster Rewards app to earn, order, and enjoy. It's Frank Seravalli's go-to airport refresher. Booster Juice. Jon Goyens with the Coaches Room. Jon, let's dig into this Eastern Conference final between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. And let's start with, I guess, that Rangers high-end skill that they have and the scoring they've been able to do at 5-on-5. How is that maybe similar to head-to-head matchups during the regular season?
Both teams are relatively diversified in the way they score. They don't score exactly the same way, but both teams definitely do embrace the forecheck, deep down low type of play. I would say, though, at times Florida in the offensive zone has more of a straight line approach, and the Rangers at times really want to open it up. So it's, there are similarities. There's a lot of depth on both sides, and there's incredible goaltending on both sides. It's going to be which team can consistently remain to that offensive identity that they've either seen in head-to-head matchups, but also have played out, especially through the first two rounds of this playoffs.
So let's dig into a little bit of the clips behind that Rangers offense.
Yeah, and we'll look a lot of quick plays off the offensive zone play, a lot of movement in the offensive zone. You see Fox pinch down there to keep the play alive. And watch Trocheck right here. He reloads, fakes the shot, elite seam pass, bang, one-timer, and that's the place. If you're going to 1T on Bobrovsky, you got to go upstairs under the bar. They're really good at changing point of attack behind the net, and when they climb the puck, a forward climbs the puck up high, they overload at the net, and they're good with wristers. Now, the one thing Florida is not going to want to do is allow guys, no offense, Nick Cousins to be carrying the puck high in the zone while two defensemen dive down. So we're going to pause there. Those are the clips from the regular season. Let's be honest, it's playoffs. Every mistake is that much more magnified. You don't want Nick Cousins carrying pucks above the tops of circles and then your 2D diving in. It takes one Keandre Miller poke check. And as we see the rest of the goals that they scored, the Rangers in the second round, you see a lot of similarities. Elite seam pass. And again, who It's Fox. We saw that in the power play breakdowns in last series. And it's how quickly they recover pucks, activate the D. And they're willing to activate all 6D. And this is Lindgren. He's going to circle the wagons through the trapezoid. And that's a huge goal. As we know, it seals the series win. They're willing to grind along the walls. And there's zero flybys. It looks like a nothing play, but there's zero flybys. And that's why Kreider has been so effective, because players are putting the pucks within inches of that goal line, and he is there to pick up the garbage. And when in doubt, let's get on the rush. And it's Fox, one of the last guys to leave the zone, and watch again. Elite seam passes. Florida is good at surfing and negating those types of plays often, but it's something that they've got to be really sharp with. And then lastly, a lot of low to high plays, and they like to stack their screens with movement. So players will float up into high pockets of space to get away from the coverage. And when in doubt, hold that puck, skate through the trapezoid. And if teams are sleeping, they're gonna execute right in the low slot.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, the Rangers and that net front presence with Kreider is going to be so key in 5-on-5, John. When you look at Florida, though, from their perspective, how have they been scoring at 5-on-5 that the Rangers need to be aware of?
Well, again, they're heavy on the forecheck. They love that heavy game. They like to spread out the offensive zone. Most teams want to do that. Most teams want to play, let's call it 5 guys in a quadrant of the defensive zone. So Florida's going to want to go low to high. They love to hammer pucks on net. They got great net presence. They, again, like to travel through the back of the net. And one element of chemistry is Barkov and Reinhart. There's one elite play that's going to come up here. It looks like Jackie Moon in semi-pro. They kick it in, kick it out, kick it back in, and they nail it. And it's just a certain globetrotter effect. But let's let these first few clips roll of Florida taking it to the Rangers a little bit in the regular season. And you see they dart quickly for that net presence again. They go low to high and again, stack screens. But in this case, they love to switch spots. So the guy low travels high, the guy high travels low, and it creates a little confusion. Watch this pocket pass by Barkov. Reinhardt's coming in late. No, you take it. No, you take it. Now this should be easy D-zone coverage. Reinhardt finds that soft little pocket, and it's up and under the bar. These guys are willing to cycle through the back of the net, and Barkov's one of the best behind the net. And again, that chemistry down low between Barkov and Reinhardt is elite. And the last thing the Rangers really can afford, you can't be circling the wagons. They're going to go low to high and hammer shots, but watch the two wingers both circle, and where's the puck? They cannot help because they both circled away from the slot on a broken play. So we'll pause there. Again, don't circle in the D zone. A lot more stops and starts. And when Florida goes low to high and that shot's taken, the Rangers can't afford to circle and float out of the zone. They got to dart down and create a 3-on-5 man advantage for themselves in the slot. So we'll see the next clips from round 2 that go back to Florida's commitment to reload, get above pucks, and then they're going to strike, and they're going to hound you. And watch, they get traffic, and they anchor that guy at the net. Forbert floats away from the net, so Rodriguez gets the body position at the net. They love the forecheck. They're just going to hug and squeeze you, and they have a knack. Florida has a knack of finding ways to get to the net, out of sight, out of mind. Now watch this play. We all know how huge this one was. Under 9 seconds, 2 hard point shots, puck recovery, and again, net presence, and Forsling, who's been outstanding in these playoffs. Now watch a long-range forecheck. Reinhart was still in the zone when the puck went deep. He beats everybody up the ice. We know the Bruins had line-changing issues in the playoffs, and this creates this mayhem, and there's no way Brazo gets back in time. So line changes are going to be huge because I think Florida got some real easy ones there in the last round, and you just got to be aware, do not float or stretch away from that slot.
And it's those little things in the playoffs. Who are you giving the edge to in this series? I know the books have it at pretty damn near close to a pick 'em.
I'm going Florida.
Oh, all right. I like that. Jon Goyens with the Coaches Room. You can find him on Twitter at Gourmet Hockey. The segment powered by Booster Juice. John, we'll chat again later in the week.
Have a good one.
Our daily Faceoff inbox question is brought to you by Douglas Mattress. You can order today at douglas.ca/DFO. And right now, every mattress order comes with a free Comfort Sleep Bundle. You get 2 memory foam pillows with pillow protectors, 1 luxurious cotton sheet set, and 1 mattress protector free with any mattress order. Head to douglas.ca/DFO today. Frank, our question comes in, and it's actually about the Leafs again. Hiring Berube, does it make it any less likely, or maybe tempting is a better word, for the Leafs to run it back and see what this core can do under Chief? Or do you think they make big changes still?
They have to make big changes. It's not a choice. Brendan Shanahan said it after the season ended. We have to consider everything. Everything's on the table. That's the message. And I can't imagine doing this again for a 9th consecutive season after spending this much on your core, knowing that it makes 0 sense to even enter the season. You're either signing Mitch Marner to an extension or you're trading him. Like, to start this year with him in the final year of his deal makes 0 sense. So that alone should be the impetus for big change. I said it on the DFO rundown. I think there's a single-digit % chance that Mitch Marner is in a Toronto Maple Leafs uniform starting in October.
Interesting stuff. Again, full convo over with towards the end, I should say, of the DFO rundown that you can get now. Let's move along to our daily bets.
Wait. I have a quick AskDFO inbox question.
What?
Who happened to win our golf match on Saturday?
Yeah, you and my dad were able to take down me and my fiance. It was close though. It came down. It was tied on 18, and then I
tied on 18T. That's the best way to do it. It's like Game 7.
Don't worry. I'm still reminding people I did beat you straight up though. So if it was just me versus you, I would have won. Not to throw anyone under the bus.
Yeah. Also with clubs I never saw before in my life. So.
Also a decent point. All right. Daily bets brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Sign up today with that promo code DAILY365 to get in on a wide range of markets. Here's my Game 7 same gamer, Frank. Plus 180. Oilers to win in regulation. Connor McDavid, 2+ points. It comes in at a pretty nice plus 180, but keeping it simple. I think 97 has another good game in him. He's always been good for the Oilers in kind of these big moments. Think back to Game 7 a couple years ago against the Kings, the OT winner against the Flames to win the BOA, 3 points in the 3rd period of the Game 6 victory. I like betting on Connor McDavid and the Oilers tonight and juicing it up a bit with the same gamer at Bet365. Frank, that brings us to garbage time. It is brought to you by Wendy's. They use fresh, never frozen Canadian beef. It's never seen the inside of a freezer, and that is in all their burgers. Whether it's a Baconator, Dave Single, or a JBC, you'll only ever find real fresh beef that's real juicy and loaded with fresh toppings. Download the Wendy's app today. Frank, our garbage time today is when you think back to those early season moments between the Oilers and Canucks. It's in a way easy to envision a world where if the Canucks don't dominate the Oilers 3 times in the first 27 days, maybe Jay Woodcroft is still the head coach of this Oilers team.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting I'd love to have an eye on the wall or a fly on the wall of what Jay Woodcroft is thinking and feeling. He's in Czechia, helping Team Canada at the World Championships, and has to be a really tough feeling for him. That even that win percentage is a bit skewed by the Oilers' 3-9-1 start. And I'm sure a lot of people, and if you go back, and I was reading all the quotes today from that early season slump about all the Oilers players talking about the confidence that they still had to make the playoffs, and the fact that just after this, they go on and by a pretty sizable margin are the best team in hockey to close out the regular season from there on in. Probably a really mixed feeling. I'm sure some part of Jay Woodcroft would be feeling, hey, there's some really great people there and love those players that really competed for me. And on the other hand, feeling like you probably got a bit of a raw deal. I'm sure by now he's had enough time to digest and move on, but a pressure-packed moment like this, especially against a team that beat you 3 times and outscored you 18-6 in the first 27 days of the season, man, it's got to be a tough spot to be in. So be real curious to imagine, are you watching? Are you keeping tabs on it? Are you checking the score when you first wake up? It's going to be the middle of the night in Czechia, but I would love to know.
Yeah, and what an interesting season it's been for the Oilers. They'll look to keep that season alive tonight out in Vancouver. The two best words in sports. It's Game 7, and it's the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Come to a close this evening. We're going to break it all down tomorrow on the show. Look forward to chatting with everybody. Then we'll get set for the Western Conference Final as well. Enjoy the game tonight, everybody. We'll chat with you again tomorrow at noon Eastern.
Thanks for tuning in to Daily Faceoff Live. Make sure you hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode.